Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, covering Ipswich Town since 2015. I'm Richard Woodward and you're tuned into the Prematch show in partnership with our friends at the Greyhound Pub in Ipswich. This is our delayed Gillingham away edition and making his first appearance of the new year. Seb Brown, Happy New Year, mate. How you doing?
I'm all right, mate. Happy New Year to you too. Did you have a good one?
It was all right. I did a little bit of work for the first time ever because I now live here. I didn't have to travel back.
Result.
So I did some work in between, so I saved some annual leave, which is a bonus for later in the year. And apart from that, it was very relaxed and all good. How about you?
Exactly the same. Very relaxed, very chilled. I took 2 weeks off, which was quite nice, to be honest. A nice break from work, and got back into it as of last Tuesday.
But no football to talk about apart from Wickham.
We had Wickham, and thankfully, to be fair, I did all the research for this about 2 days before Christmas, and thankfully, Gillingham very, very unselfishly only drew 0-0 away to MK Dons, so the updates were minimal. So a big thank you to Steve Owens and Gillingham for that one.
keeping our effort minimum. That's what it's about. The pre-match show. We've got plenty to talk about. Obviously, Gillingham and Room 101 coming up. I think both Seb and I are feeling confident for once after the last show's efforts were pretty poor, weren't they?
I think I won, but I think
you won, but I don't think anyone won really.
It wasn't a classic, was it?
It was not. Let's first off, we've got a special guest. Let's go and speak to them. Let's do some news. And you can see, if you are watching on YouTube, joining us now, Kieren Standley from Ipswich Town Women, the media officer. Happy New Year to you, Kieren.
Happy New Year, gents. How are we?
Very good. How was your... Seb was asking us about our plans. How were your plans? A bit quieter than maybe normal as well, because you had some postponements and stuff like that anyway, didn't you? I think there's usually a gap, but some games called off, weren't there?
Well, we had a bit of time off. But, I mean, for me, the Christmas and New Year period was just like the same as it was every single year. It was no better or no worse than in previous years. So I kind of think that by the time you get to the sort of Christmas evening, you're kind of glad it's all over.
Wow.
Yeah, for me, nothing spectacular. Just a pretty standard Christmas with the family, and that was it really. So yeah, I'm glad to be. I never thought I'd say it, but be glad to be back in work.
I was going to say, it feels like you can't wait for the action to resume, which is great because it is. We'll be talking about Gillingham for the men, but it's Portsmouth for ITFC Women on Sunday, 2 p.m. at the Gold Star Ground. I guess we need to get your instant reaction. I was hesitant to ask Joe about this on our podcast with him available now. But obviously we have to cover it. Last time out, defeat there. But we're top of the league, obviously, still, which is great. It's really tight up there now. But Oxford are to use a Mick McCarthy, they're no mugs, are they?
No, they're a very good side at this level. Last season, at the end of the season, when the teams were selected for upward movement, I believe they were only a fraction off of nipping Oxford to that promotion. So we knew that they were going to be a good side going into this season. And they proved just that. They've got a 100% record at home. They scored early. They've got some magnificent players, and Beth Lumsden being one of them. She scored the opening goal and showed her quality. And ultimately, it just wasn't our day. It was an off day for us. And when you pair an off day for us with an exceptional performance from Oxford, it's not a good combination. So, yeah, they took the 3 points that day. It was disappointing for us, but I think Joe summed it up well when I spoke to him after the game. To win 11 games out of 12 in the league, to start our first season in Tier 3, phenomenal run of form, and ultimately the run had to come to an end at some point. Sad that it ended as it did, but now we've just got to refocus after a break and get back on another run.
Exactly right. And we were talking about the stats that you posted around Christmas time for the calendar year. I mean, it's really impressive stuff. So, a bit of maybe a reminder of this is a level above, and we've just been promoted into it. But it's useful timing, I think, psychologically, to think about the second half of the season and just go again, isn't it? So Portsmouth will be tough, though. I guess mid-table, clearly not as fearsome as some of the opponents we've played of late, but again, no mugs, to use a Mickism.
I think Portsmouth are the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the league, to be honest. You either get an incredible, almighty Portsmouth that could blow away anyone on their day, or they'll go and drop points to some of the teams that struggle. You never know what you're going to get with them. They're so unpredictable. But we've played them a couple of times over the last couple of years. We knocked them out of the FA Cup during that historic, memorable cup run of a couple of years ago. And then we played them, I think it was in April, in a post-season friendly at Playford Road, and we drew 3-3. It was a really entertaining game of football. So, yeah, it's going to be tight. It'll be very hotly contested. It'll be a real challenge for us, especially to start the calendar year with a game of that calibre. So, we're looking forward to it. Hopefully, we're going to be ready for it. Obviously, when you come back and play a fixture after only 1 week's training, it's going to be difficult for both sides. But, we're looking forward to it, and hopefully we can start the year off on the right footing.
And hoping for a decent crowd as well. Obviously, a few people travelling off to Gillingham, but unlike last time we spoke, no issues with fixture clashes and the like. So, hopefully, and a special guest if Twitter is to be believed as well.
Yeah, so I wanted to make a bit of a thing of it. A part of my job is to try and enhance the fan experience at games and drive the crowds up. So I thought, with this being a high caliber fixture to start 2022, I thought let's try and make a little bit of more of an effort to try and push it. So we've got Bluey and Crazy coming, so I'm sure the kids will be delighted with that. That always adds a little extra something when you get them to come. But just want to say thanks to Dan Palfrey as well, the PR manager at the club. This afternoon, I collected around 400 of the blue flags that we used in the Pack Up PR campaign. So they will be scattered around. Trust me, there is no room in the back of my car left now. The back of the car and the boot are completely covered in blue flags. So yeah, thanks to Dan for lending those. So there will be a lot of blue flags in the crowd at Felixstowe on Sunday. So any Town fans watching this that are going to come to the game, pick up your flag, give it a good wave, and let's make it a really, really good atmosphere for the first game.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah. And also good to hear that the flags are being reused. Sustainability, that's what we want in 2022. It's all about our carbon footprint, which is great. Kieren, before we let you enjoy the rest of your evening, I was going to put this question to Seb, but he politely refused because he hasn't seen any games in person. But I asked this on the Naked Footy show of Graham and Matt. Who's your player of the half season so far?
Yeah. I actually spoke about this on the Tracks Girls Talk podcast that Ross and our Captain Blue does. Sorry,
it's okay.
I don't know whether that's blasphemous.
Other podcasts are available.
Yeah. We talked about that on there. I put 3 contenders forward. I think that there are so many different contenders because we've had a magnificent season and everyone has played a part in what has been a really, really great year. So I don't think it's a case of a runaway contender. I think you could highlight maybe 7 or 8. But for me, the 3 I would probably put forward as finalists at this current moment in time, of course it can change, would be Abbey Lafayette, of course, sponsored by Blue Monday, Kyra Robertson, and what was the other one I put forward? Zoe Barrett. Of course, having a magnificent season, 9 goals, 7 assists this season. So for me, it's of those 3. I think there are definitely some other names you could throw into that. But
we're close to the full 11.
But that's how good it's been, isn't it? Yeah. You could literally not say a bad word about anyone. Everyone has had such a magnificent season. So even if someone doesn't win Player of the Year, they shouldn't be downhearted by that. It's just a reflection of how good the team has been as a collective.
Exactly right. So Felixstowe Walton, 2 p.m. kickoff. You do the details. How much is it to get in? True Blue, to give us a bit of an advert on that.
Yeah, so it's 2 o'clock kickoff at the Gold Star Ground, Felixstowe Walton United. It is free for True Blue members, and it is £5 for adults who are not True Blue members, £3 concessions, under 16s free with a paying adult. Hoping we're going to get a really decent crowd down there this weekend and kick off the year in style.
Fingers crossed. And the website for all the True Blue details?
Yeah, so it's just head to itfcwomen.co.uk and it's under the True Blue tab.
Grand. Kieren, thank you so much for joining us. All the best for Sunday and
Thank
for
you.
the rest of the season, and no doubt we'll speak again as well. You can wave and say goodbye, and I can press the button, and you can enjoy the rest of your evening. So thanks, Kieren.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
There you go, Seb. You need to get yourself down to Felixstowe Walton so you can join the player of the season so far, because it is, I think I mentioned Bonnie Horwood on the chat with Joe, which is still available, as is our interview with Abby Lafayette. But Abby's had a great half a season as well. Lots of assists, set pieces, deadly. We've talked about that, but you got it in mind to try and make a match.
I need to. Obviously, well, we've discussed, haven't we, potentially maybe in an away game coming up in the not too distant future. So we might do that as my first ITFC Women's game. But yeah, I need to make sure I can stay a bit longer on a Sunday than start heading back, because it's exact time I normally hit the road at the A14 to get back up north if I'm back down south for a weekend. So no, it will happen. I will make it happen. Maybe
Newcastle in the FA Cup. I think that's what we've earmarked, isn't it? Last bit of news going back to the men's team, and the guys will talk about this, I'm sure, in the Flagship show. I'm not really going to quote stuff at you, Seb, but Paul Cook has been doing
one more, surely one more outing.
I have lost it. We talked about it on the 2021 review.
I heard you say you've been practicing McKenna that much, trying to make it non-offensive, that you've lost your Paul Cookism.
That was just a crap excuse. I can't remember, because it's up there, but
it wasn't that high. No, you died.
I can't remember. You see, as soon as a manager leaves Ipswich, they're dead to me. So, but like a former manager that we talk about plenty on this podcast, Paul Cook is doing the rounds. What's in terms of providing a little bit of sanity and reassurance to any Ipswich fans listening to this podcast, of which hopefully there will be a few. This is posturing and PR, isn't it?
Yeah, he wants a job, doesn't he? Let's be honest. He's waited the appropriate amount of time. We saw it with Lambert. Lambert was everywhere, wasn't he? Mick obviously protects the brand and does what he does with his mates in the media. And Paul Cook's just doing the same at the moment. He's ready for a job again. He said in the interview he's sick of his mates. He's sick of Christmas. He wants to get back out there working. So he's naturally going to paint himself in the best possible light for any prospective candidate out there. Now, I'm not sure if he would get a championship job. I don't know. He strikes me very much as an older school manager. So I'm not necessarily sure that a progressive club like we are hopefully moving towards now suit him anymore. And let's be honest, some of the things he said were a little bit bordering on dishonest, shall we say, disingenuous. Certainly, I think you put disingenuous in the WhatsApp group, didn't you? So they're the kind of terms I would use. I mean, you don't go out, do you, and sign the kind of players we sign, especially on deadline day, and not be, expected to win promotion. We've been over it so many times, what was expected of him. I appreciate what he's saying about there's no recruitment room, and in the previous clubs I've done my own recruitment and my own fitness, etc. But that's the way modern football is now. You have these departments set up throughout the club so that if you change a manager, then you have minimal back room and back staff changes, and things could carry on as they are. So unfortunately for me, he was an older school manager. It didn't work here. He didn't work the first time round for the half season he had last year. Didn't work second season, and he's just trying to put himself out there to get some work, isn't he?
Yeah, a bit of slopey shoulders and a bit of history put in Paul Cook rose tinted spectacles, but I think we wish him well. And
he's the one thing that everyone has said throughout this, at the end, Mick obviously annoyed the fans a little bit. Lambert wasn't overly popular, but I think from a personal point of view, I think you won't find many Ipswich fans say a bad word about Cook, will you? He was so jovial, and he really got it, and he spoke like a fan. He was so open and honest and engaging at the start and stuff. And from a personal point of view, absolutely wish him well. It just didn't work here. Sometimes things don't fit, do they?
They don't fit, and the takeover. We talked about a lot of this on the excellent 2021 review pod. So go and give that a listen. But good reassurance, Seb. Yeah, don't read too much into ex-manager quotes. I think let's focus on the future. And there you go. How about that? A segue. How about the near future for us on the weekend? So Gillingham next up, Seb. Give us the state of the nation for Gillingham. Does not read well, does it?
No, not having the best of times at the moment, are they? They had obviously their COVID postponements, one of which we were unfortunately affected by over the Christmas period. But their season is, going from bad to worse. They're currently 22nd in the league on 18 points, played 23 games, only won 3 all season, drawn 9, lost 11, scored 18 goals and conceded 34 goals. So, Kieran McKenna has got a pretty decent chance here to get off to build some momentum after the Wycombe game, let's be honest. Lost 5 of their last 6 in the league. They drew 0-0 on New Year's Day away at MK Dons, which I guess for them is quite a decent result. MK Dons did kind of dominate things. They had 67% possession and 17 shots, albeit only 3 or so on target. But yeah, Gillingham were certainly before that game in a hell of a bad run of form, and hopefully we can obviously take advantage of that on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of providing some context as well, last season 10th. In fact, they've finished quite well in the last.
Yeah.
Didn't they? I mean, they beat us to 10th, I think, in the season before, didn't they?
Yeah.
Lost Jordan Graham. I think he's at Birmingham now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Also, Connor Ogilvie went to Portsmouth, who got a few assists, quite solid at left back. Keeper Jack Bonner went to Stoke, who kept 10 clean sheets. So there was definitely some.
They lost some quality,
change.
didn't they?
And
lost a lot of quality and got no money in for them, obviously, because they were mainly free transfers. They left, so they didn't have a chance to reinvest either. I'm quite glad you'll pronounce Connor Ogilvie, because I was looking at it trying to think, how am I going to pronounce that? Because last time I was on here, you pulled me up time and time again on the pronunciation. So thanks for doing that one for me.
Yeah, I've got a few others that I'll try and get in there first for you. Ogilvie, yes, you say how it's written, mate.
See, I was saying Ogiliv, but that's clearly not right. So.
Ogling. And worth mentioning as well, I think just in the context of form, that 5 defeats in a row before MK, definitely punctuated by injuries to key players who are now returning. So, clearly they're not where they are on the basis of those 5 defeats alone. The rest of the season has not been good, as Seb has said, but made worse by the absence of key players who we'll talk about shortly. Just to remind us, in terms of last season, we beat them 1-0, Seb, in October.
That was the Teddy Bishop worldie, wasn't it? Right towards about the 82nd, 83rd minute.
Right.
I don't think we played well, and then Bishop on his left foot hits one from the edge of the area. I think almost was it a half volley or just curls it or something? And we won it. But I think we were pretty poor that night, if I remember rightly.
I was struggling to remember that game, so now you've described the goal. I can remember it. And
it was quite late on, I know that.
Yeah, we also beat them in the EFL Trophy as well. But worth saying that we've talked about it, neither do I. Ben Polami scored. I don't remember. I think Dobra scored a worldie, though. I think Dobra hit a long ranger. It might have been that game. But worth mentioning, the previous fixture was, we've talked about it already,
Paul Cook's first game. Yeah.
And not a good performance, was it?
Awful, wasn't it? Do you remember? It seemed to be really disjointed, and we'd just beaten somebody in the week. Was it Accrington or Accrington away, wasn't it? He was on the touchline, wasn't he? Sort of in the stands, sort of trying to give advice, but obviously not, because he hadn't officially taken charge. He was unveiled earlier that day, and we were all quite excited. But I remember us being absolutely woeful on that day. I think it was 1-1. Chambers equalised to make it 1-1, and then was it the game where Sears played like a suicidal back pass, and he gave the ball away or something, and they latched onto it and scored. I remember it being a really, really poor performance.
Yeah, I don't think we equalised. I think Chambers got us back to 2-1. Right, and they made it 3. I think I might be wrong.
I think Sears came on and got 2 assists for them, or something happened. I don't know, but I wasn't that concerned at the time, because I just thought, it's a new manager. He's only had a brief bit of time on the training pitch, and then it will all come good.
Little did we know. Worth focusing in on the home form, Seb.
They are rubbish. Yeah, joint bottom of the league, of the home league table, on 9 points with Lincoln. So not great at home at all. They've played 10, only won 2, drawn 3, and lost 5 of the home games. Only scored 7 goals at home this season, conceded 14. And of those 7 goals they've scored, only 2 have been from open play. 2 are from set pieces, 2 are penalties, and there was 1 own goal thrown in the mix as well. So this is not a side that creates a lot from open play and is crap at home. Fill your boots, Ipswich.
Oh, come on, stop.
It's a new era. Be positive. It's a new era.
I'm positive. I just don't like us tempting it. It's a new era in the Ipswich dugout. It's an old era in the away. In the home dugout, I mean. But it's a what era?
It's a large era, isn't it? I think that's the best way to describe. Yeah, Steve Evans, our old friend. I think he pissed off. Definitely Mick, definitely Lambert. I think he has a habit of
Lambert,
riling
definitely.
people up the wrong way. Lambert was the one where he said he came from the wrong side of Glasgow or something, and they had that spat on the touchline, didn't they? So, yeah, Evans is there at the moment. Been there since June 2019. He's nearing 700 games in his managerial career, so he has been around quite a lot. At Gillingham, he's played 128 games, or managed 128 games.
I love seeing him play.
He'd be a great goalkeeper.
What position would you put him in? Goal,
Definitely a keeper.
surely.
Definitely a keeper.
Just
He'd be like that. Do you
stretch your
remember
arms
that? Was it the Lincoln reserve keeper when they beat us in the FA Cup was huge. Do you remember the guy that was eating the pie on the sidelines? It would be like that, wouldn't it? So he's managed 128 games, 143, drew 36, lost 49, so 1.29 points per game. Obviously, that's heavily skewed this season because the last 2 years, like we said, they were pretty comfortable in mid-table. You know, I think they were even challenging for the playoffs up until maybe sort of February, March time or so of last year.
A little bit of a run, but never sustained it.
No, they never got into the top six or anything. They were never really a genuine threat. But this year they've just absolutely plummeted down the table, haven't they?
Yeah, I just always remember he was manager at Leeds for a while. Only 7 months. But
yeah, he annoyed Mick during that time. We won it January. What about by this time, 2016? I want to say Brett Pittman scored very late on, and I remember he really annoyed Mick after the game and said something, and Mick had a bit of a dig. Oh, that's it. He said, I think we were 6th, and he said something like, "If it was to the standard of the playoffs, we'll definitely be in there," or something like that. It was something along those lines in his normal wind-up merchant. So he rubbed Mick up the wrong way back in the day.
I couldn't find the stats on whether he's been given any yellow cards, but I'd be surprised if he hasn't. Moving on in terms of what to expect, we talked through some of the stats in terms of the goals scored is not great. Second worst in League One, with Donny being the absolute worst. You talked about a large contribution of goals in total, home and away. My number is 22% of their goals are either own goals or penalties.
Yeah,
not great. Over 10 shots a game is the 5th worst in League One, but it's actually better than Ipswich. Ours is 0.2. I've rounded up, but yeah, not great. But of those 11 shots that they take, only 3.5 are on target, and that's kind of to your point about creating chances, but also making them decent chances. The big chances, it just doesn't happen. And one big chance a game is kind of all they can muster. But you picked up on a very unlucky stat, though. So
a little bit, yeah. I mean, they've hit the woodwork 10 times this season. I don't know what those chances were, how many points they would have added onto them. But 10 times to me in 23 games, it seems to me to be very, very high.
Yeah.
But then you can blame poor finishing, can't you? Technically it's a shot off target. It doesn't mean anything. I just thought, that seems to be a little bit unlucky, I would say.
Yeah, exactly right. But not in terms of not being surprising, knowing what we know about Steve Evans, but knowing what we know about the situation Gillingham find themselves in. Possession, not great, and style of play, very direct.
Yeah, so 38% on average possession, which is the lowest in the league. They're perfectly, they don't keep the ball at all. And their style of play is very much long ball. They're averaging 74 long balls per game, which makes up 26% of their total match passes. So, you're looking at nearly one long ball every, minute and 20 seconds in the game or so. So, be prepared for a bit of I guess after Wickham, they'll be well versed in it. But yeah, prepare yourselves for a bit of an aerial bombardment out from the back, just the defenders hoofing it over the midfield.
And we're saying, and this is a stat that I picked up on, they have the second worst pass accuracy in the division, just below 60%. Worse than them, and the worst in the entire division, Wickham.
Yeah.
Wickham have the worst pass accuracy in the entire division. I guess we shouldn't be surprised by that.
Well, it's not surprising when you launch balls forward, you're naturally.
But they're a promotion. Even their long balls aren't accurate, is what this is saying as well. So anyway, long balls, long shots, and discipline not great as well. So
no, poor, aren't they? They've had I think it's 40 something yellow cards and 4 reds so far, which is the joint second worst in the league. So they are a bit of a dirty side. They like to foul, and they are dirty. Yeah,
Burton and Shrewsbury, I think Burton have got 4, Shrewsbury have got 5, so they're quite a large number of red cards. In terms of systems then and personnel, let's start with the key personnel. Dave mentioned him in the pre-Christmas pod. No surprises who the key man is.
Yeah, Verdane Oliver is their main goal getter. He's got 6 goals so far from 18 appearances. Did I pronounce it right? Verdane Oliver, is that correct?
That was a thumbs
Excellent,
up,
excellent, brilliant. Thanks. Yeah, he's the main man. He scored against us, didn't he, in the 3-1 game? He's got 2, did he? 2, yeah. And he's their main focal point. Now, I guess it might help us out the fact these guys have barely played. You know, their last game was December the 11th before the 0-0 draw against MK Dons on New Year's Day. So I guess we're hoping that as well as being a bit rubbish, hopefully they're a bit rusty as well. Is that fair? Do you think?
December the 11th, yeah. Yeah, but we might be too.
Maybe,
I think actually, I think this, so a lot of, we'll talk about this more later on, a lot of suspicion and conspiracy theories about teams calling matches off due to COVID. Gillingham have been subject to a lot of injuries during December and November. And actually, I think this delay has worked out really well for them because Oliver had been out for a month. We'll talk about the guy who came in to replace him who didn't manage to get on the score sheet. Another player who's been out who I quite like is Carl Dempsey, sitting midfielder. He'd been out for a while as well, since mid-November as well. So a lot of players missing, and suddenly, thanks to postponements and what have you, are now available. And Oliver came back for the MK Dons game, I believe.
And the window's obviously open, so they've been able to make a signing as well.
We'll
come on to that. We get to the striking options. So, other player I've picked out is Danny Lloyd. He can play wide or through the middle. So far this season, he's got 3 goals and 2 assists in 20 appearances. So he's kind of one of their principal kind of creators. And Verdane Oliver is the danger man to watch out for.
And a name that's familiar to all of us as well.
We do. We have an ITFC link. Yeah, Mustafa Carriol is there. He of the amazing Messi-esque 45 minutes away at Preston in February 2018. I was there. He was phenomenal. He absolutely tore them to pieces. He's one of the quickest players that I've seen at that level. He was absolutely superb. And then at halftime, he never came back again. I think Mick did an interview after the game and said he had some tummy upset. And I think he made maybe 2 or 3 more appearances for us before departing on. I think he went out to Cyprus, if I remember correctly. But yeah, he's there at the moment. He started the last game, but he's not been a regular so far this season.
And we've been debating before we've started recording the formation. I think at the very least we can expect a 4 at the back and a 1 up front. I think recently they've had 2 sitting midfielders, but at MK it was a kind of a 4-1-4-1. So I think what we'll do is we'll give you a 4 at the back and 1 up top. And just kind of talk through the key personnel because there's a lot of ever-presence or players coming back in that we can talk about. Do you want to take us through them from back to front?
Yeah, so the goalkeeper will be Jamie Cumming. He's on loan from Chelsea, like many sides do at this level. They've got a Premier League sort of loaney kid as their goalkeeper. So he's started every game so far this season. So he'll be in goal. The back 4, we would expect to be Ryan Jackson at right back. He's got 1 assist in 13 starts. Bit of a long throw specialist. So all of us that went to Cheltenham away and are still shell-shocked by that evening, brace yourselves. It might be a similar vein. Max Emar, he's a player I remember from being higher up the pyramid. He came through at QPR. And I think I used to sign him quite a lot on Football Manager because I think he was quite cheap. And if you needed a centre-back, he was fairly decent. He's made 22 appearances so far this season. Reece Bennett, the other centre-back.
He's another one. Sorry, Max Emar is I'm going with.
What did I say? Emar.
Emar is he's another player who's been out injured as well and coming back.
Yeah. Reece Bennett, he's come back into the side just before the COVID cancellations, made 16 appearances. He'll probably be the left-sided centre-back. And then Robin McKenzie is likely to be the left-back, 1 goal and 1 assist in 20 games so far this season. So the back 4 tends to be pretty settled with coming in behind.
Excuse me.
Sorry. Yeah.
And from what I've seen as well, Jackson tends to on the right hand side tends to sit more than McKenzie, who will push forward on the left hand side. So worth keeping a lookout for that. In terms of central midfield, I mean, there's a cluster of players. We're not talk through all of them, but I think it's clear that there'll be at least 1 sitter.
Yeah.
The name that you've got is Jack Tucker.
Yeah, defensive screen. So he can slot into the centre-back position as well if need be, but he's likely to be the defensive screen in the midfield. 7 yellows so far this season, but he's made 21 appearances, so he's fairly constant throughout.
Dan Phillips is another one. He's been on loan from Watford, but he's another one of these players who's been brought in absence of more experienced players. And Carl Dempsey, who I talked about before, is returning from injury. If he's fit, and I think he was on the bench against MK, I'd expect him to start because I think he's the captain as well.
Yeah.
And he's been missing. Another player who might be familiar, Stuart O'Keefe, who can play kind of sitter, but all the way through to a 10. But again, is your stats here, Seb, no goals, no assists. You know what you're going to get with that kind of player. Ollie Lee is notionally, he's got the number 10 squad number, has been playing, but was benched against MK and only 1 goal and 0 assists there. So the creativity is not in the middle, it seems, for this team.
No, it's from the wide positions, isn't it? It's Mackenzie as the left back position and Danny Lloyd. Danny Lloyd can play both sides. He's been playing he's a natural left-sided player, I believe, but he's been playing out on the right due to all their injuries and COVID suspension. So that's where the threat will come from. It's likely to be him on the right wing. He started on the right wing against MK Dons, certainly. So likely to be him on the right wing and probably Carriol on the left wing. And they will be supplying the ammunition for our friend Verdane Oliver. Came back against MK Dons after a spell out. As I say, he's their best player. 18 starts, 6 goals. He's by far their main threat. They've got a couple of backup options. They're superbly named. I've got to be careful how I pronounce this. Gerald Sithole, named after the town of Gillingham. He's deputised, but he's struggled to make a bit of an impact. John Akindi is there. I don't know. I remember coming up against him. I can't think who it was for, but I know the name. 12 starts, 1 goal, but he is getting on a little bit. He's 32. And as we discussed earlier, as we discussed earlier, with the transfer window being open, they have now made a signing, and it is a striker, and it is from up the road. It's from Norwich. They've signed Tom Dixon-Peters on loan for the rest of the season and given him the number 9 shirt. He's been fairly prolific so far in PL2, which is basically the reserves, I think, isn't it? He's got 13 goals in 15 games. So yeah, if you want a bit of narrative, I could see him potentially maybe looking to cause some damage.
Yep. So that's our assessment of Gillingham. I'm interested on your pronunciation of their 19-year-old striker who will likely drop out. And I thought, and as an example, you've take out Verdane Oliver and bring in a 19-year-old youth player, who's not got any real experience. You're not going to score goals, are you? And Oliver is a big focal point for this team, and his absence has been a problem. He's back now. Is he fit? I guess to your point previously, Seb, is the big question there. But I'd be surprised if Dixon-Peters starts over him, but maybe Steve Evans might go 2 up front. You never know.
Maybe. I mean, I think Dixon-Peters, having only joined on, was it Tuesday? It's like he'll be a bench option, surely, won't he? Did Oliver come off? I think around about the 65-minute mark against MK. So maybe because of fitness issues, he can't do the full 90. In which case, Dixon-Peters will be the obvious player to come in and try and cause a bit of havoc and stuff. Yeah,
let me just check that. So.
I think he was subbed off, if I remember correctly.
63 minutes, you're right.
There you go. Yeah, so he got about just over an hour out of him. So I guess that's factored in with the lack of playing time, injuries, COVID, etc. So hopefully he might start to tie around the same kind of point. But I guess if he does, then we're going to be looking at this Norwich youth prospect coming on.
Yeah, he was brought off for David Donda, who I think is a left winger, who we haven't mentioned so far. So tactical sub by the look of it, but probably, as you say, in probably injuries in mind there. So let's think about Ipswich then, and the big question is whether McKenna's going to stick with the 3-5-2. I think
you wouldn't change it, would you?
He's had a long time with the training ground, hasn't he? But
he's had 2 really good performances in the base of the 3-5-2, hasn't he? Against Sunderland, certainly in the first half against Sunderland, and then Wickham. I really enjoyed the Wickham game. Also, I saw the post-match stuff that you did, and I personally really enjoyed that performance. I thought it was a really, really good display. I thought our in-game management was decent. I liked the fact there were tactical tweaks. It was more of a 3-4-3, I guess, wasn't it? With Aluko and Norwood sort of either side of Bond, and he tucked Norwood in when to protect Penny a little bit. And I really like what we've seen so far. So I think he will stick with the 3 at the back, and I guess it'll either be a 2 up top or a 3.
And we know Nolan and Coulson will be out. They're the long-term absentees. Shock. Walton hopefully back. Selena, I think, has been ill. A few have had COVID, haven't they, and are recovering from that.
Yeah, I saw some pictures today. Carl Edwards is back in training, isn't he? And they said that Toto and Raheem Harper were in training as of last week at some point. So the squad is slowly but surely getting back to full fitness, with only, like you said, Nolan, who's been out now for, it must be coming up to a year now, isn't it? Since he's been out. And Coulson obviously has been back at Middlesbrough. And I think, did Chris Wilder say he was about 4 weeks away at the start of this week? So potentially another month or so before he's back in the building, which I assume means that Penny will continue in the left wing back position.
Yeah, and I think Bailey Clements has been out injured as well, but he's an option there as well. We'll see. I think probably it'll be minimal changes, as you said, Seb, and that 3 at the back as well. I'll push you for a prediction. I'm going to give you some history. We've only lost to Gillingham 3 times in our entire history in all competitions, and that includes that 3-1 defeat last season. And do you remember the 3-4, the 4-3 defeat under Royal, where basically we came from behind, if you pardon the expression, 3 times, and then they scored in the last minute.
And we also lost the year before. Do you remember? We sacked Burley And we lost 1-0, and it was the game where Joe Royle was basically confirmed. Everyone knew it was him, and he was being announced on the Monday, I think, and then North Stand was singing, "You can stick Joe Royle up your arse." So I remember that one as well. So yeah, we went. They were a bit of a bogey side for us in the early noughties.
Not a team that we played masses over the years, but 13 Town wins, 12 draws, and 3 defeats. So what say you for Saturday?
I think we'll win. I would have liked the game to have been on Boxing Day to, give McKenna a chance and build some momentum. I know they've had a positive result away from home at MK Dons, but I think we'll win. I'm going to go for a fairly comfortable 2-0.
I'm going to go for a 1-0. I think Gillingham are no mugs, and the MK draw is in it. I've said that 3 times now, haven't I? Hat-trick ball there. I think there's those players coming back from injury are important for them. Draw away at MK isn't a bad result either. So it shows there's a little bit of fight there, but I think we'll have enough. We'll have more quality. It might be a little bit of a frustrating game, but I think we'll come out on top. Let's go to your fact of the week. And there's an Ipswich leaning towards it this year.
There is, yeah. So there's not the most information available about Gillingham, surprisingly. But they first claimed their Football League status back in 1920. However, 17 years later, they were voted out of the league and they were replaced by a certain Ipswich Town. When the league was then expanded to 92 clubs, 12 years later, they were invited back in again. But yeah, we kicked them out back in 1920. Yeah.
There you go. We might be kicking them out of League One on Saturday. How about there you go?
Superb. What a link.
Brought it round. Hosting, that's what we want. In terms of other hosting bits and pieces, worth mentioning a few bits and pieces in terms of plugs and information on what's happening this weekend. The Flagship show is back, as always, out on Monday morning at the very latest, depending on when the guys record it. Mikey in the host's chair, joined by Craig and Joe, talking about Gillingham. Blue Monday, itfc.co.uk is where you can find all the details for that. All the links to our feeds, our podcast feed, our YouTube feeds, and all of our social medias. And worth just as well drawing attention, we've mentioned it already as well. I've done an interview with Joe Sheehan, first team manager of the ITFC Women's team. Really great insight from his perspective as a coach. He came across as really meticulous, has a real plan, sets a really high benchmark for quality, has really good visions of the future and making the club a real focal point for women's football development, both locally and within the kind of wider East Anglian region, and talks about the games coming up over the next few weeks as well. So I would say this, but really recommend listening to that, particularly if you're not familiar with the women's team and want to understand kind of how that works. Listen to the kind of main man there, Joe. And we've also got interviews with other people. Abby Lafayette, we mentioned her. Christian Walton, we spoke to Christian Walton. If you've got loads of Christian Walton love, like lots of people do at the moment, it'd be great to sign him, wouldn't it, by the way, Seb?
Absolutely, yeah. And if a lot of you have got the Paul Mariner book for Christmas, which you're judging by Twitter, a lot of people have, then make sure you check out your interview with the author.
Yeah, Mark Donaldson. We will be getting him back. We will announce details of our first book club podcast at some point in the next few weeks as well. There is your lot on announcements and housekeeping. Let's do the real quiz now. Come on, Seb. And we mentioned it already, but a victory.
He's back.
It's a shallow, what's the hollow victory? That's what I mean.
A win is a win. Doesn't matter if it goes in the last minute off a deflection, a win is a win.
Yeah, someone's shin. Yeah, early levers lingering around and not getting out. And that's fair enough. Mine one was crap and definitely.
Yours was the betting markets, wasn't it?
Yeah, how pointless the betting
easily
markets
swayed betting markets for League One managers,
which I don't really care about, but I was running out of ideas.
I think we've got a good one this week, don't you? I think it's a bit of a return to form.
Yeah, I'm not running out of ideas this week. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first. Tactical. So my room 101 this week, obviously it's very topical, is the lack of transparency from the EFL and the Premier League around these COVID cancellations. Because all you get is a notification on Twitter or the Sky Sports website saying such and such a game is off due to COVID and injuries. You don't get any more detail than that. And obviously, I assume the clubs have to submit, details of failed PCRs and that kind of thing to the Football League. But some of these squads, the rule is you've got to have 13 players and a goalkeeper, haven't you? That's what they said at the start of the season. If you've got 13 players and a goalkeeper, the tie goes ahead. Now, some of these squads, especially in the Premier League, Christ, you have squad numbers going into the 60s, and they're just, for whatever reason, they're just finding loopholes in the systems to get round things. Like you said earlier with Gillingham, potentially, maybe sometimes these things come at a good time for the clubs, and it's not fair on the fans, especially what happened over the Christmas period. Part of the Christmas break for me is football. You're guaranteed to get 3 games or so. There's football on pretty much every day, every night, and it's just not right. Too many of these clubs are using this as an excuse, and the lack of transparency from the Football League and the Premier League is ridiculous. They should publish more specific details about exactly why these games have gone off. I saw it last night. They've cancelled the EFL semi-final tonight between Arsenal and Liverpool because they've had an outbreak in the Liverpool squad. Now, I went to Anfield. I've mentioned it previously on the pod. I went to Anfield. Yeah, I did. Yeah. And there was a player on the bench with a squad number of 88. Now, I know that doesn't mean they've got 88 registered players, but to me, it suggests they've got a lot more than 13 plus a goalkeeper. And, it's too much of a convenient excuse when the pitches are hard and teams are on a bad run of form and they've got some injuries. It's a very, very convenient excuse to get some games called off. So for me, get rid of it. Teams should be forced to play. And that's my Room 101 this week.
And worth saying as well, I mean, we've been the on the wrong side of a couple of fixtures where this has happened, and not wishing to disparage anyone, but it is, there's no coincidence that it's teams who have struggled or have got, and you're right, if there's nothing iffy going on, then there should be no issues with teams sharing details of test results, should there? I think that's a fair challenge.
You'd have to name the name specifically. I'm not interested in that, but you should give specific details. We have this number positive PCRs, etc. And also, both Lincoln and Gillingham we've discussed have now signed a striker, and Lincoln went out and signed Morgan Whittaker from Swansea, didn't they? So he'll now be in their ranks before we're due to play them, whereas he wasn't when the original game was on. So the whole thing stinks for me personally. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, it's a good one. That is, the standard is good already. I'm feeling nervous now. I was quite confident before. I'm not so more anymore. Let's see whether I can fight fire with fire. I am putting up to the intelligent, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls listening to the podcast, Twitter transfer clickbait accounts. It's silly season now. I've got history on this podcast. I'm not a big fan of transfer windows. In fact, I tried to put transfer windows into Room 101. I just think it's fake jeopardy. It just serves to make some kind of, arbitrary process for Sky to put yellow jackets and ties and stuff on and make a big song and dance about it. I just don't think it serves any useful purpose for the benefits the game. It benefits media. It benefits agents. It benefits clubs selling to panicked clubs who need to buy a striker at the last minute. What's worse for me, and we know that Twitter is not the greatest of places for sane and rational debate at the best of times, but these fake accounts and these fake in the know people who crop up, I'm an EFL sider, I've been an agent, one of my favorite things to do when these accounts pop up, and people, what they do, they make the mistake, and if you're going to do this, I'm after you, and here's how I'm going to get you. They find a random photo of a person on the internet. They go trawling through LinkedIn or something like that and get a professional looking photo. They come up with a fake name for that person, and then they say, I've been a football agent for the best part of 10 years, and I want to share my insider knowledge with all of you guys because I'm great like that. And what I do is I reverse search in Google the image, find who the person is, and then get them, firstly report them. You've got to block and report. But I then before I do that, I reply to one of their tweets and say, is this you, ... and tell them who their photo really is. And I just think it's a bit of fun. I get that it's, if you didn't do GCSE history and were able to discern a biased source from a reliable source, that's all I can remember from GCSE history, then I guess, people are going to be kind of conned a bit, and no harm of it. But a lot of people get excited about this kind of stuff and get let down by it. And I just find it a little bit tedious. little bit identity thefty, a little bit annoying, and I just think it's more distraction, more circus for something that is already a little bit pantomime season that we don't need. So I'm putting in transfer Twitter clickbait, in the know, lie, nonsense, bullshittery.
It's a good shout. The mistake people always make as well, once they see the headline, they never actually click on the person's detail, because when you do, you always find out that these kind of, EFL super transfer insider has 3 followers. And I'm no Twitter expert, but I'm fairly sure if they were, they'd have a lot more than 3 followers. So yeah, do your research, people. It is silly season. Do your research, but that's definitely not the winner this week. The winner is COVID. Think how many of your Christmases were ruined because you couldn't go to Gillingham on Boxing Day. You couldn't watch Lincoln on iFollow. You couldn't watch a couple of Premier League games at night because it was cancelled. That's the winner this week.
I mean, sticking up for Gillingham and Lincoln, they might have legitimately had shed loads of COVID positive tests. So what are you saying then?
Well, fine, but make that bring that to the forefront. Let's see that.
Oh, what for you? For you? Who are you?
Just for me. I want to set up PCR Insider on Twitter, and I want that account to start tweeting with its 7 followers. I want that account to start tweeting exactly how many people. No, I want more detail from the EFL. So the EFL should come out and say, instead of just saying Burnley versus Newcastle is postponed due to COVID, they should come out and say Newcastle postponed because Burnley have 19 positive PCR tests and Newcastle have 17 or something. Just a little bit more detail behind it, and they shouldn't be allowed to use injuries as a factor either, because if a player's injured, he's injured. Fair
enough. My sources are telling me that they've had 5 positive tests. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, well, there you go. Hopefully a much stronger showing from Seb and I this week. I definitely feel like
maybe the break did us good.
Better.
Yeah, re-energized,
regrouped, where we have relaxed a little bit. But I am going to run out of stuff.
Or we've just got grumpy over Christmas, the two of us. You by me by cancelled football, and you by made up in the no Twitter accounts.
Transfer bollocks. Yeah, there we go. Let's play the theme tune once more. That is your lot. Seb, thank you as always for your hard work and research and insight. We will see what happens on the Twitter poll for Room 101. We'll put that out along with the links for the show. So go and check that out on Twitter. As we mentioned, Blue Monday, itfc.co.uk for all the details of what's going on with us, our shows, our links and all that kind of fun stuff available there. Worth mentioning again, our friends at the Greyhound who support us on this show. We know it's an away day this weekend, but if you're hanging around Suffolk, Ipswich way this weekend, you're not going down to Gillingham, why not pop into the Greyhound and have a cheeky pint of Adnams, say hello to the lovely people working there, and bear it in mind for the next home game, which I haven't
Accrington on the 20. Accrington at home on the 22nd.
We got a break, yeah. So Bolton away next weekend.
We're away at Bolton next week. A nice local one for me, and then we're at home to Accrington. So yeah, pre-Accrington, get yourselves down there, get in the booth with the heaters, and you won't even feel the cold.
There you go, salesman. Brilliant stuff. And also check out our interviews we mentioned with Joe Sheehan, and need to thank as well Kieren Standley for joining us. Impromptu news there. Always good to get other voices on the pod. Thank you everyone for listening and getting us this far. And Seb, have you got anything to say? Final word? I'm going to come to you and give you the final word, so you need to come up with something. So there you go. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll hand over to Seb.
Have a great time, everyone that's going to Gillingham. It's a new year, hopefully a successful year for Ipswich Town. Come on, you Blues, and vote for COVID cancellations.